Jonathan, you need to face a window. You should not have the window behind you.
Yeah.
That's why you come out down.
Dirty.
Yeah. My wife's telling me the kitchen's dirty. I can't turn around.
You might want to draw the curtain or something.
Oh, I'm joking.
Yeah.
That looks better right there when you block the window. Just
That's all I got to do.
Yes.
Woo!
Just draw.
P.
Yeah,
that's my father.
Aww.
And Nina is my sister.
Welcome, Mr. HP.
I'm just bringing everybody.
And Nina,
my sister.
Maulainen?
Maulainen, yes.
Maulainen?
Yes. That's
okay. Pretty.
Thank you.
I love the way it just rolled right off your tongue as though you're used to saying it. Just
practice.
Anyway.
What's going on?
We are going live.
Uh-oh.
There's about a 10-minute lag, or 10-second lag between Facebook and Zoom. But I put share screen on so you can see what's going on Facebook also, because we just are coming on to that now. Supposed to go here. Here we are.
Lester? This is awesome. Yeah. I hope you'll teach it to us.
I did share it earlier.
Wait, I got a notice. It says Kathleen Osborne is now live.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, let's see how we get this bigger. Oh, there.
Still don't know what to ask Kenya though. Let's see. She said, what did she have?
Yeah, thank you very much. Ask me what I had for breakfast, okay?
That's an easy
and
one.
What I'm going to have for dinner. You can ask me anything. I'll just outlive it. Don't worry about it.
As you can you just heard, there's a lag on it. So, okay. What are you going to have for dinner?
Wait, don't spoil this.
Leftovers from yesterday. We had barbecued food in Connecticut. So that's what I'm having. Or maybe we'll go out to eat. It's beautiful out. The sun is shining for a change.
Okay, I am.
Do we have to do anything?
I hope not.
I just got hiccups.
Go with it.
Okay, I think something really screwed up. Because notice what we've got here.
Yeah.
No, I think I don't think we're going to be able to go live.
You are live. You have multiple windows open. I don't know if you can close them.
How do I close them, Martina?
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Okay. Everybody. Martina.
Yes. I don't know how you can close them, Kathleen, because I don't see what you see since you're running the Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what to tell you at that point, because it shows every single person in its own sub window, which is odd.
Okay, we're going to stop sharing.
Okay. You can always share the recorded one.
Okay.
Oh, now it's working fine.
Let's see, live on Facebook.
Now it's all right on the live. It's okay.
It's all right on your Facebook. Let me check.
Yes, it works fine. It was just because you were sharing the screen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't do screen sharing. Now you're okay, Kathleen. Here
Okay.
too.
All right. Okay, great. All right. It's so wonderful to have everybody here. Thank you for coming. Okay. Okay. All right. Welcome to Meet the Authors. There are 10 authors who met through the right practice. We have to wait for that lag. You'll get to hear from each of the authors, but we're asking you to save your questions until the end. At the bottom of your screen, there in the center is a chat. And on the bottom left of your screen, you'll notice there's a microphone. You can mute yourself, and you can yeah, that's where you can share your questions. It's going to come through on the mute. Maybe mute. Stop your video. If you have to get up and go someplace, it's very distracting for everybody else. So you can just click on that, and then when you come back, click on it again. And in the chat, also you can say to hi to one another if you want. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I don't know how to shut off the echo. Do you, Celia? Or Martina?
I cannot hear the echo.
We don't hear you echo. You can hear it because you probably have your phone on for the Facebook. I wouldn't worry about it. Just mute your phone and put it aside because the lag won't go away. You can just continue talking.
Oh, okay. It's just coming through my computer. That's fine. All right.
I'm just reminded of the old Elaine Boozler joke where she was singing the Star Spangled Banner in a stadium. And then after like 10 seconds, she starts to hear the echo. So she starts slowing down her singing so that she can catch up with herself.
Okay, so we've already talked about the screen down at the bottom. We were supposed to have 10 of us here. Unfortunately, we were only able to have 8 of us. 2 had other issues or job constraints that they couldn't be here. One of them was Karen Crawford, and she's the one that created our cover. Wasn't it a beautiful cover?
Yes.
Very eye-catching.
Yes.
But she also wrote Behind the Mask and The Last Exit to Somewhere in the anthology. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen. Karen Crawford grew up in the vibrant neighborhood of East Harlem in New York City. She currently lives in the City of Angels, where she writes to exorcise those pesky demons around her and within her. I'm going to be putting in the chat how you can follow up with her on Twitter in just a few minutes. But first, let me introduce to you Alison. Alison Meldrum is from Scotland. She wrote The Reward and The House on the Avenue. Writing has been Alison's career and passion for 20 years. After graduating with an MA in English Literature from the University of Edinburgh, Allison's professional writing journey began in news and feature journalism before progressing to communication and content marketing for a number of years. During this time, Allison built a significant portfolio of published work across local, national, and digital media. Allison currently turned her attention to her first love, writing fiction that engages her readers and does not let go. She has a special interest in the genres of mystery, suspense, and romance, and delivers a twist in the tale to take your breath away. Her short stories have already been published online, attracting positive attention on East of the Web. She's also been a guest contributor on a number of parenting blogs, including Brit Mums, as well as regularly writing for her own blog. I'll be typing in chat after I interview her how you can follow her also. Now, Allison, let's give her a hand.
Woo! From all around the globe.
Yes, we are. Allison, what inspired you to start writing?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the intro, Kathleen. Lovely to be here. I would say that probably since the very first time I toyed with the idea of writing fiction, it became quite obvious that really the only thing and the best thing I could write about is what inspires me in life and my life experiences that I've had so far. I was also sort of brought up on the works of a certain Agatha Christie, reading and watching a lot of her work with my mum. So if it was Poirot novels and the films on TV, so that really, I think that sparked the kind of mystery in me. I'm also very influenced by parenthood, by being a mum, and by the trials and tribulations of family life. And actually, I've just got a bit of an overactive imagination that needs to have a channel of some sort. So that's about it, really.
Okay. Well, how was your experience getting together with 10 other authors and working together?
Well, I have to say that working on this anthology for the place I'm at in my writing has definitely been a defining moment. Just being lucky enough to come together with 9 other talented writers, such a diverse group of supportive people, has just been wonderful. Lovely as it is to have family and friends around you, there's nothing that quite beats having like-minded writers that understand the challenges, the good days, the bad days, and to have a project to focus on together, I think has been so important.
Okay. Would you do it again?
Without a doubt. Absolutely. And I would recommend it to anyone who's thinking about it, especially if they think it's a little bit daunting going out there on your own, to just have that sort of support group around you. Definitely.
Okay. What do you like to write?
Well, as I mentioned, I love to write mystery. I would like to think down the line I'll get further into the suspense genre. And I do like to keep readers on their toes a bit and give them a little bit of a special twist at the end, just to sort of give them bang for their buck and maybe surprise them along the way.
That answered all my questions. Okay, I'll let you turn it over to the next author.
Well, now I would like to introduce you to Celia Sage, who wrote Shelved and Head in the Sand. Celia Kenna Sage is a fantasy author who lives up to her grandfather's nomadic legacy. She enjoys traveling, especially to places tied to legends and folklore she can include in her stories. An avid reader of romance, fantasy, and paranormal novels, she is also a lifelong writer. A poet as a child, a fairy tale teller as a teenager, and now a fiction writer. She writes contemporary fantasy with a touch of romance. Her work includes short stories, flash fiction, and novels. Celia currently resides in the United States, where she dedicates half of her time to writing. The other half She teaches languages to college students and opens their eyes to new cultures. So, Celia, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
Starting with, when did you start writing?
I started writing, well, as you said, a long time ago when I was 8-year-old. I started with poems, and I also had a small poem published in a local newspaper, thanks to my dad, who's actually here today. And it was in a small town, but it worked perfectly. Then I wrote fairy tales, but I never published any. I started my novels. I started the first novel when I was 13, but it never saw the light of day. It stayed in the drawer. It's still there back home. And now 2 years ago, I started writing again. And I finished a few drafts of 2 novels. And I wrote short stories that I published, and the ones that I published in Tolerance.
Wow, that's amazing. My son's 7, so the thought of him starting to write next year is wonderful. Good for you.
Yes. My nephew is also 8 or 9, and he already starts writing. So, I hope he'll make it.
Young. No. Absolutely. And then what advice would you give to a newbie writer, or what advice would you have liked to have had yourself when you first started your career?
Yes, well, I have 2 advices actually. The first one is read to write, because at the beginning I felt guilty not to read. I thought I wasted my time. I needed to just be writing, and it didn't work. I don't know what I don't know. I have to actually go around, read about it, and also even read the other novels just to see, like, how other writers do it, and we learn from each other, and it's great. And the second one is you cannot do it alone. As you mentioned, Alison, you were saying that you found this group of people that can understand you and that allows you to go on, that helps you. So whenever you feel like venting and your family will not have it, then you can find other people, other writers that understand you, and you can meet bi-weekly, monthly. It's a huge help, and you can brainstorm, beta read, critique. It's just a huge help. And I think it also allows you to see the world through different eyes. They would see things differently, and that also helps for writing.
So true. Totally agree. Absolutely. And in terms of what sparks your imagination, Celia?
Well, my surroundings, I just reality. I like to travel. Well, we used to travel before this hard year, and I just like to find new places. But now that I was stuck at home for a year, I just used my screensavers. They just every day they just show us new places. And it just sparks my imagination. I actually one of them was a bridge in Scotland, and with a legend, yes, about when you put your water you face in the water for 7 seconds, and then you get eternal beauty. That was fantastic, and I had like a small story right there. So that's what I use. Anything.
Oh, lovely. Oh, visual stimulation. Well, thank you so much. And I'm just going to pop Celia's contact details in the chat as well. But thanks for that, Celia.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you. And well, I am pleased to present Anna. So Anna wrote Ratioville and Misconception in the Tolerance Anthology. Anna Paulina Lipster was born in Brazil, her mother tongue Portuguese. She fell in love with the English language, love at first word, as she said, in junior high in the city of Niterói, Rio de Janeiro state. Anna Paulina attended the British Culture School for 7 years, and she majored in extramural studies, from which she received the Certificate of Proficiency from Cambridge University, United Kingdom. After immigrating to Israel, Anna Paulina continued to improve her studies of the English language and literature, as well as embellishing her vocabulary, enhancing the use of the language, and learning the craft through many and various creative writing workshops. Anna Paulina has written numerous short stories, some of which are posted on her website and published in this Tolerance Anthology. Her book, a crime novel entitled Branded, will be out soon. So congratulations. And I will type later Anna's information in the chat, so you can follow her and check her website. So thank you for being with us, Anna. It has been great working with you. So my first question is, when did you start writing?
Well, Celia, when I think about it, I can say that I have been writing all my life. I think I started the moment I learned to read and write. As I remember, as a little kid, during family gatherings, I would slip into a back room and would be found much later sitting on the floor in a corner, reading no matter what I could find. It could be a piece of newspaper, an ad pamphlet that somebody just left around. And that's what I would do, in elementary school, I would write at the back of the notebooks. I would invent dialogues between the teacher and pupil, the ones that I could remember from the class.
Amazing.
Or I would write short stories, which I would discard later. I started writing in Portuguese, and then I changed to English. So.
Oh, it's amazing. And so you already told us what sparked your imagination when you were a kid, but now what sparks your imagination?
Anything, anywhere. An idea can come from an article in the newspaper, and it doesn't mean that I will write about anything in the article. It just, gives me a spark, or a phrase that I read in a book.
Yes.
Can spark a whole story. Even a conversation that I cannot avoid listening in a restaurant. People like to talk loud. So I get some phrases and I write something. And also I got many ideas when I wrote to work by bus. I would listen to the people talking there, or in waiting rooms. I would make up stories about people I saw to appease the boredom of waiting. That's what I would look at people there, and I would imagine scenes and dialogues. I worked for many years for various airlines. And as such, I used to travel frequently. And Celia, believe me, airports are a plentiful source of ideas for stories in any weather.
Thank you for the advice. I should start doing that. I waited until I get to the places before getting sparks, but that's a great advice. And what do you like to write? What genre is your favorite?
I prefer fiction, preferably crime novels. First of all, because it's also my favorite kind of reading material. But I also enjoy writing about utopic matters, social, psychological issues. I enjoy writing stories with something that will surprise the reader at the end. That's what I aim, usually. I like to write stories with unexpected endings, because these are also, this is also the genre that I enjoy reading most.
Absolutely. I agree, and I cannot wait to read your book, your crime book, branded soon, just to get surprised.
Thank you all. Yeah, thank you, Celia. Okay. Now, Brandon Cuddle, although he was unable to be with us today, I want to introduce him to you. Brandon wrote Just an Egg and the Box for our anthology. Brandon is a recovering Floridian currently on the left coast. He works in pseudo-technology and has an innate ability to find the best street tacos in every city.
That's Brandon.
So now I'm very glad to introduce to you Jonathan Baird. Jonathan is a husband, father of 3 daughters, and an optimist. Some might say Micawber. He was born in Biloxi and never imagined living anywhere else. However, after leaving, he never imagined moving back. The more he sees of the world, the more he wants to see. Currently, he lives in Fairhope, Alabama, the hidden jewel of the state. While his favorite genre to write is in science fiction, he has completed and is polishing Seafood Capital of the World, which is a historical fiction novel set in the Prohibition era on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. When he isn't writing, he's thinking about writing, even if it looks like he's doing something else, like work. He has an answer for everything, an opinion on anything, and is quiet about nothing. Now, Jonathan, what is the thing you tell yourself to keep on when you feel like quitting?
Well, when it comes time for me to think about quitting, I'm reminded of a time that I took my daughter to see Weird Al Yankovic at the Hard Rock Casino in Biloxi. And I pointed out to her a drum head that was signed by Alex Van Halen that said, "Knock down 7 times, stand up 8. And if she doesn't get anything else from me, I hope that that's what she learns from me. Well, that and a love of both Weird Al and Van Halen.
Okay. And what inspires you to write your stories?
So both of these stories were very 2020 to me. The first one was actually the B-side, Salvation Beach, was a story that was inspired by a parable my dad had once told me. And he told it, and then I embellished it to become a story about a church that had lost its way. And the fact that I may have been a member of that church at the time is completely coincidental. But there are other points based on my life and his life as well. And my dad passed away in February of 2020. So he never got to see the finished work, but that's why the story feels so 2020 to me. Half Vast was originally conceived as a story without a plot. And the fact that I found a plot surprises no one more than me. It was very fun having Less is More as my protagonist, an antagonist named Just In Case, talking about things that were neither black nor white with an intermediary by the name of Grayscale. But the very last scene, or the next to last scene, was really the reason both that I found the plot and that the story felt so 2020, because it was some thoughts that I began to have as I was driving down the beautiful downtown Government Boulevard in Mobile.
Okay. Now, what advice would you give to other authors who are thinking about doing an anthology?
So I'd actually give this advice, not only for an anthology, but just writing in general. And that's jump in with both feet. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. And if you get knocked down 7 times, stand up 8.
Great.
All right. So now I'm going to introduce Henya, who is someone that I actually got to know a little bit before we started this process. She also wrote The Limits of Autobiography and Photographs with a Missing Head. Henya comes from a rich cultural background. She was born in France to Polish parents and raised in Israel, then came to America at an early age. Writing novels was always her wish, and now she has Stolen Truth coming out, making it a reality. She has short stories published in numerous magazines, and she's a regular contributor to Medium.com. When she's not absorbed in writing her 3rd novel and spending too much time on her computer, Henya's passions include lifting weights, spinning, and cultivating her large garden. She and her husband live in New York City. So Henya, I want to ask what you had for breakfast, but instead what I'm going to ask you is what inspired you to write your choices of stories here?
My family background to begin with. By the way, my breakfast was just juice, in case you were curious. So what was the question again?
Is what inspired you to write your story?
Okay, my family background, not really knowing much about the background, but trying to guess most of it, that prompted me to take facts as they are, as they were from World War II, and embellishing on it and inserting my parents in there and the bits and pieces that they gave me. And that actually I used to write many years ago, and these stories are not that new. And then I ventured out to different kind of writing.
Okay. What genre do you like to write, and why do you write in that genre?
I like to write psychological thriller, as I like to read psychological thrillers or thrillers of any kind. The kind of reading that keeps you at the edge of the seat, the kind of reading where when you turn a corner, you don't really know where you're going to end up. The kind of story where it makes your heart palpitate. The kind of stories that there are so many trials and tribulation that you have to continue turning the page to see what's going on in the next page and on and on. This is really, when I write, this is what I aspire. I want to keep you at the edge of the seat. So psychological thrillers and being interested in people's cues, their body language, what they say and how they say it, what they wear and don't wear. So all of that goes into my books.
I know that I personally am anxious to get my pre-ordered copy of Stolen Truth. And I know we're not very far away from being able to see it. So my last question to ask you here this morning is, when did you stop thinking of writing as just a wish that you wanted to do and start really considering yourself to be an author?
As all of you know, that calling ourselves authors at one point or another, especially when we begin to write and we are not published, we feel like, and it took me quite a long time, but this is actually my third novel, the one that's coming out on the 18th. I'm working on a fourth novel. I think after I finished the first novel, when I started calling myself a writer. But then the uncomfortable thing is where are you published? Well, I'm not published. So, you're trying to sort of weasel your way into saying, well, I am a writer, but I'm not published yet. So it really does count. Jonathan, thank you very much for the wonderful questions and the intro. And now I'm going to introduce to you Aletta B. Aletta B, whom I met, as I met all of you, and it was such a pleasant surprise to meet all of you. She's an emerging author, and she's a licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice. Fascinated by how people influence each other, misunderstand each other, and ultimately love each other. I think it's so beautiful the way she said that. It resonates with me. Aletta was an English literature major at Duke University. She received her doctorate from the Institute of Contemporary Psychoanalysis and taught English for senior high for several years. And after 30 years of almost exclusively reading clinical nonfiction, her love of fiction was born out of an incident when a neighbor psychologically threatened her friend. So Aletta felt compelled to write a short story about it, and I assumed that after that she got the ball rolling. She's currently working on the second draft of her novel in progress, Mommy Do-Over. This is a story of Melissa, a 55-year-old artist who faces lung cancer diagnosis and desperately wants to heal her relationship with her recovering alcoholic son. She lives in Culver City alongside the late MGM mate for its stars and movies. She enjoys watching the 47 ducks and 24 koi who populate the lake. So Aletta, I have a few questions for you. Yes, I would love to know about your writing journey. If you can share it with us.
Sure. Well, it actually started in grade school. I would make little stories and give them to the teacher, and the teacher would be so pleased and put me in front of the reading class. So I felt like a little teacher's pet when actually my social life in first grade was the pits. So this was a little savior in my life. And then another time when I was in high school and madly in love with this boy who was a writer, and he was going off to Yale that year. And so I wrote a story about how the ocean had turned to stone, so no boats could leave. So I write out of people that I love and care about and what could happen to them. So that's one thing. In the stories that I wrote for this anthology, both of them were kind of like that. The one in the front, the first story called A Fly on the Wall, came out of a comment that a man made when I was going off to go to a women's meeting of friends in my neighborhood. We meet every Sunday night by Zoom now. And he said, "Oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with you women. I know you gossip all the time." So I took offense at that position and view of women and decided to do something about it. So that's what that first story is about. The second story, which I actually wrote first, was the one that Henya just mentioned. I had a girlfriend and a new neighbor moved in, and that new neighbor gave her hell. And I don't want to ruin the story and having you have the delight of uncovering the deceit in Deceit and Dirty Laundry. But I was so outraged on the side of my friend that I had to do something. So I wrote that story. So
yeah, a psychological injury can be more, it could be pretty bad, worse than having a physical injury sometimes.
Yeah.
My next question is, so you mentioned the novel. Can you tell us a little bit about your novel?
About the
that you're working on now?
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yes, the novel.
At first, I thought I would write a story about a shy woman, artistic type who blossomed. And then I thought, well, that's nice, but so what? It's one person growing. And then I thought, well, what if her growing had interfered with somebody she loved? That would be much more interesting. So then I thought, well, what's the most powerful thing in being a woman and having two sons? A relationship with the son would really be gripping. And I had clients who have come to me who were estranged from their parents. I'm thinking of one woman in particular. She was dying of cancer. She was estranged from her mother, and they came to me to help them sort out the communication so they would be able to have the mother treat her at home. And it was so moving to see what happened between the two of them and how they were able to work together, that it really solidified that desire. So between occasional distances from my own sons that are painful and lots of clients who have the same issue, I thought this might be a worthy thing to look at.
Actually, it sounds like something I would love to read. So I hope you keep me up to date with that.
Thank
all
you.
of us up to date.
Thank you.
So can you tell us what you like to read? What inspires you when you read? What do you like to read?
Right now, I'm reading Judy Picoult because there are a lot of the same issues, and I like to see how somebody else writes about them. I've heard people say they don't like her, but I'm getting value out of it because it's so personal. I'm actually even fairly new to it. It was Elizabeth Stout. It was Olive and Olive Again, the two books that got me back into one thing. Wow, that's so powerful. I want to be able to do something like that. But for the previous 30 years, it had been clinical books. So this is a whole new sea change.
Wonderful. It sounds fascinating.
Thank
you for your answers.
Thank you. And so, was it my turn for Brandon? Let me get my little thingy up here. Brandon, I wish I could see your face better.
I think you're introducing me.
Kevin.
It's Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do mean Kevin. Well, well. So, Kevin, I'm just fascinated. You live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're married with 3 children. And one of the things about your resume that just fascinated me is that you have a BA in Russian language. And then you were at the American Embassy in Moscow. And I'm just wondering what got you started with wanting to learn the Russian language?
So early on in high school, I just had an impulse to learn something difficult, and I needed to complete a language. And I, my junior year in high school, I enrolled in a 2-hour after-school program, which would also provide college credit. At another school, it was a half-hour bus ride there and back, and it was 2 hours long. I would get home at like 7 o'clock at night, and I had a 2-hour immersed Russian language class every day for that year. And I remember, adults around me saying, "Why are you doing that? Study a language you can use, like Spanish." And I thought, everyone speaks Spanish. I here in New Mexico, and I just wanted a challenge. So after I got into the university, I took the route that I think people around me did, going into engineering. I got through calculus, and I bombed out on one chemistry exam, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought, I need to study something I like. I said, well, I used to study Russian. And I enrolled into the Russian program there, the University of New Mexico. And I realized the first day that I was the only person who could say anything. I could read and write print script in Russian, and I had a somewhat developed base, for the language. And the head of the department was teaching the class. There was only like 5 of us in the first class. She took me to the side later and said, you really got this.